The shallows, using these existing conditions, it's adding these painted markings on the roadway. Provides a visual barrier for the driver looking at the bicyclists. Just an added warning. I know from my perspective, this really isn't applicable here. It's a 10-foot travel lane, so cars tend to take up most of them. And typically bicyclists, travel on the outside lanes anyways. So I think this is kind of redundant. There's no real addition this really adds. I think it's kind of stating the obvious. Here's an example of showers to give you a point of view. Here it is, just the painted marking. So obviously, minimal environmental impact. It's cheap, just painted on the road and it's there. But again, I don't think it offers much. Dedicated bike lanes, which is the additional 4 feet on either side. And I know that's been the biggest argument that I've seen is, it's going to ruin the rural jewel feeling of the roadway. And it's going to add approximately 40% to the roadway. And again, I would feel the same way you did. If somebody came in and said, I'm going to widen your road, I think the way it is out there looks good right now. If you add 4 feet on either side, it's going to be a sea of pavement. And what an additional 4 feet on either side tends to do, yes, the bicyclists will have their dedicated lanes, and yes, their safety will be improved, but in this application, it's going to ruin the aesthetics to it, and also it's going to add to the speeds that are already out there. We have 10-foot lanes, so if you're approaching another vehicle, they might tend to slow down a little bit. But now if you have 14 feet, they're not even going to consider it. They're going to, maybe cross that painted line right here. And, the speeds are obviously going to increase. So this brings us to, actually, an example. Dedicated bike lane. It's pretty straightforward. Your travel lane with your 4 to 6 foot dedicated bike lane. As you can see, it's a lot of pavement. Our mixed use path, as you can see, 8-foot mixed use path separated. This says 2 to 8 feet. It's actually a mistake. It should be 5 to 10 feet to allow for vegetation separation. I know a lot of the separated bike paths that I've seen around here tend to be white clean. They have a 3-foot buffer, and it seems to typically just end up with sand, no grass. The salt kills everything, and there's no real separation. It's almost as if there was, just an additional bike lane. So it doesn't really offer much. What we hope to do is to have the vegetation separation, not have the salt kill the grass, where applicable, go beyond the trees. So you have a tree line separation, separating the bike lane from the travel lane. Like Adam showed earlier, it's West Tisbury Road, and I think this is a perfect example. It's in this location. This is almost identically what we'd like to do. The tree separation and the 8-foot separating bike path. The separated bike path tends to blend in. So, another argument was that it's gonna look like an urban concrete pavement jungle out there. And as you can see, I think this is aesthetically pleasing. This brings us back to Adam's point, the 5 aspects to the Netherland approach. The do nothing, obviously state of awareness. People are aware of the bicyclists out there, so it's not usually an issue, and that kind of continues to the board. I guess what I'd like to point out most directly is homogeneity and forgiveness. Homogeneity, the separation of the bicyclists from the road. Obviously, like mass, like volume. I think the biggest thing here is like mass. We have a bicyclist and a car. The car hits a bicyclist. Obviously, it's more mass. It's going to do a lot more damage. This takes the bicyclist off the road, and obviously, it eliminates that. And I was just breezing over the against, and just one thing that crossed my mind was like masses. They said there would be between joggers and bicyclists, and if you have a bicyclist hitting, the slim fact that it would happen when a bicyclist hits a pedestrian, no one's hurt. Maybe somebody breaks an arm, worst case scenario, but If a car hits a bicyclist or a pedestrian, we get some serious damage. Forgiveness. If a bicyclist falls down in a path, they're falling into dirt, they're falling into another bicyclist or a jogger. Worst case scenario. If a bicyclist, a child, falls in the road, worst case scenario, death, they get hit by a car. So off-road mixed-use path eliminates both of those. These are just a couple concept drawings that we took. We did our best with the resources we had, but as you can see, separated 8-foot path. For our display purposes, we had to pick pictures that didn't have vegetation because we were limited on our graphics. But as you can see, we'd like to have a separation where this grass would be remaining and continue. And then where trees hit, we'd be, these don't really display, but we'd be on the opposite side. And here are just a couple examples of what we came up with. Obviously you can see the bicyclists sharing the lane there. This is a concept drawing, ground offline. We thought it was very applicable to what's out there now, or what we proposed. You have your mixed-use path, obviously separated by your vegetation, and it just works. I mean, you look at this, or I look at this, and I say, okay, they keep the existing conditions with the roadway, and there's no issue there. The bicyclists and the pedestrians have their own path to use. One more thing that I'd like to add is with the biggest selling point of the off-road path is the Dyke Bridge Road. Obviously it's a dirt road. You know, if we were to do the other 3 approaches, we'd have to pave it. There's no real way around it. And I know that that's a huge issue, and I wouldn't want to pave either. But what this adds to is you have the right of way. You have the roughly 30 feet to play with. So this would enable it to leave the dirt path and add the 8-foot separated bike path and be completely separate. So it'd be able to stay a dirt road, and you'd just be adding that one strip of 8-foot pavement for the joggers and the bicyclists trying to get to the beach. And you wouldn't be able to do that with any of the other options. So this is why we chose this option. I'd like to hand it over to Mike. He's going to talk about ferry operation.